Yo, what's good, YouTube? Sam Crow here, aka Scoop, back with the World Showdown Series, Season 5, Week number 3. And we're the Blackmont Raikougars taking on the Adelaide Aggrons. I almost said Honchcross, that was close. But we're facing off against the Aggrons, which means we're facing off against the Pichu Bros, 1 or 2, depending on what platform you're seeing him on. But he's a very solid buddy of mine. We played him in Season 4 Finals, and we played him in Season 3 Semifinals. Very solid opponent. You know, we've had some some intense games, some very close stuff that's been happening between us. We respect each other as players, and I think that's why our games are so good, because we do put our best prep forth. I do believe, in my opinion, and that's what brings out the best of both of us while we play each other. Excuse me. So as you can see, my opponent's got Marshadow. He doesn't have Spectral Thief or the Marshadow Z move. Soul still in 7-star strike or something like that. So we do have it nerfed a little bit, but still a monster nonetheless, in my opinion. And he's been using it well this season so far. Well, just 2 games down, but definitely been using it so far so well. Victini, another mon, hard to switch into, just like Marshadow. Mega Mawwall, hard to switch into, and your counters are trapped by Doug Trio and eliminated, things like that. I don't expect my opponent to bring Superior. I have Crobat. I mean, he could bring a Serp with Glare and Leaf Storm and Sub Leech or something like that, but then he's either walled by Virizion, Fortress, Alola Marowak, or Crobat. He can't beat all of them, so I don't expect Serp to come. Vaporeon, while it can be taken advantage of by some of my mons, excuse me, I do expect it to come. I expect it to be like a Wish Pass mon. He could bring Hyper Offense, or he could bring, Balance, or he could bring, he can't really bring like a lot of bulk because his team doesn't have it. Outside of Vaporeon taking hits, he doesn't really have anything else that, appreciates to take hits. Like Vaporeon's a sponge, but the rest of them, and the lack of reliable recovery on all those mons. Well, I guess Togetic gets Roost, and then Serp gets Synthesis, but like I said, I don't think Serp's coming. So we definitely think the Marshadow's coming. Victini, Mega Mawwall, those 3 are definitely coming. Why would you not bring those? I think Doug Trio's coming, and then Mesprit, and either Togetic or the Vaporeon for Wish Passing specifically, and also Baton Passing, which is things that my opponent can do. So my opponent actually has Defog on 3 different Pokemon: Rotom-Mow, Superior, and the Togetic. He has Stealth Rock on 3 Pokemon as well, being Doug Trio, Mega Mawwall, and Mesprit, all 3 of which I'm anticipating to come to the matchup. He's got Heal Bell on Togetic and Vaporeon, and Aromatherapy on Serp, and he's got Wish on Pikachu, Togetic, and Vaporeon, but Wish Pikachu's probably not a thing. Pikachu's probably not a thing at all anyway. Despite that, my opponent does have quite a bit of priority that he could bring, but again, I have the Psychic Terrain. It deters priority and fighting types. Nah, for real, it does deter. It deters. Excuse me. It deters fighting types in a sense, similarly. But yeah, so lots of different things my opponent can bring. And one thing that I didn't think of, that I'm actually going to go ahead and spoil for the matchup. I did not think about Choice Scarf Marshadow. I didn't. I felt like being able to switch up its moves was very, very, very nice for him in this matchup. Because if I bring like a defensive Suicune, I'm eating hits all day. If I bring a defensive Licky Licky, you can never lock yourself in a Shadow Punch or Shadow Claw or whatever it may get, things like that. So yeah, I didn't expect Choice Scarf, and my opponent actually is going to bring Choice Scarf so that he can outspeed the likes of Choice Scarf Lalo, Mega Alakazam, guarantee outspeed Crobat, and things like that. So yeah, definitely cool prep on my opponent's part. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about our prep so we can go ahead and hop into the battle here in a second. So we got a Choice Scarf Tapu Lele here with Psychic, Moonblast, Shadow Ball, and Aromatherapy. We're able to rock a Modest Nature this week with enough speed to outpace, what was it? I think just something like Rotom, something real simple like a max speed Rotom or something like that. With Psychic, Moonblast, and Shadow Ball, it's basically the perfect coverage versus his team. Although I don't have super effective coverage for Mega Mawile. Everything else is getting pretty much bopped though. And then Aromatherapy is for, in the case that any of my Pokemon outside of Garchomp get paralyzed, or any of my Pokemon outside of Crobat gets poisoned, or something, anything like that. So any of my Pokemon get burned or frozen, put to sleep, or something like that, I can wake them up with the Aromatherapy and get them going. So this thing bops things like, and if he expects to revenge kill me with something and doesn't expect me to be a Choice Scarf set, I could potentially catch him off guard and go ahead and catch something else with a knockout. But yeah, this thing basically allows Mega Alakazam to go really ham and put the pressure on, just like most matches, and the Psychic Surge prevents me from being hit by things like Sucker Punch, or Feint or Quick Attack, or Shadow Sneak from the Marshadow, which I definitely didn't want to be hit by. And so yeah, that's the idea behind the Psychic Surge and the Choice Scarf and Lele in general, I suppose. The EVs in defense, or SPDF and HP, are just leftover EVs. So next up we have Garchomp, which is more of a fat set this week, but still hits like a fucking truck. Garchomp's that powerful. Got enough speed to outspeed Victini, max HP, and a little bit of defense investment, just so that we can better take hits from things like Victini specifically. This is our V-Create switch in, as you can see. But we have the Yachi Berry, so that if he's got Glaciate and tries to bop us on the following turn, we can always avoid that. So like V-Create into Glaciate doesn't knock us out, and we can either get up our Stealth Rocks, click Earthquake. We had to run Dragon Claw this week because he has a Mesh Sprite, which is immune to Earthquake, and Iron Head just don't get the job done versus that. But outside of our Dual Stab, he has no resistances outside of Togetic, which is bought by the Iron Head. And Rough Skin also helps me versus Victini and Marshadow and Mega Mawile to an extent. And this, depending on what he brings, I'm either going to lead with this or Sneasel. Most certainly. Definitely want to get my rocks up or prevent his rocks at all costs. I don't bring Defog this week. My opponent doesn't have a Rapid Spinner, so I felt like if he wants to get his rocks up, then we'll both either deal with rocks or he'll remove them for us. Because he has Victini, he has Togetic, and then the rest of his mons don't appreciate taking chip every turn, and then also trying to switch into me while I'm trying to switch into him, and so on and so forth, whatnot. But yeah, this thing can, if his Mawile is Intimidate pre-Mega and intimidates us, we actually can't knock him out. I don't think even a crit knocks out like a max HP Mega Mawile, so because we have no attack investment. So I would prefer to not lead with Mega Mawile. I mean, if he leads with Mega Mawile, I would prefer it to not be versus my Garchomp in a sense, because like I can be intimidated and he'll take a huge Earthquake, but I'm going to take a huge Play Rough. I can't switch into Victini anymore, and things are just going to be problematic. I can potentially lose Garchomp without getting my own rocks up. My opponent gets his rocks up and makes things very, very hard for me. So yeah, that's just the general idea. Next up we have Crobat with Air Slash, Heat Wave, Roost, and Sub. Now we're rocking the Sub. Now despite him having, okay, so he's got Mega Mawile with Sucker Punch, and we're faster obviously. So if Mega Mawile is in an attempt to knock us out, he's going to either need a Trick Room, or he's going to need like Sucker Punch. He's going to like Iron Head. We can come in on Iron Head, Roost up. And he might go for a Sucker Punch, predicting us to click Heat Wave or U-turn out or something like that. And we're going to click Sub on the Sucker Punch, and then that way we can Roost. And if he doesn't have Sucker Punch, then we just Roost the following turn. And he's probably forced out anyway. So yeah, we can just Sub up and then Roost on the following turn. We have Infiltrator, because if my opponent decides to get cheeky with something like a Sub Marshadow or Sub Serp, like I mentioned, Serp could come. I do have a lot of checks for it, but I'm only bringing Crobat to check it. So if he does bring Serp, this is my answer. I got the Lumberry so that I can come in on a potential Glare and just pop that, get rid of my paralysis, and then I'll be back to full or whatever. And if he clicks Sub or something like that and then wants to go for the Glare, then I can actually bypass his sub with air slash, get some huge damage off. Don't know why this says I'm negative special attack nature. I'm definitely not. I am a, what is it, careful? No. Plus speed. So, I'm timid. I'm timid, Crobat. Actually, this says I'm jolly, but I'm actually timid with air slash, heat wave, roost, and substitute. And I can, like I mentioned, I can bypass his subs with infiltrator, get crucial damage off. And then if he wants to go for the glare with the SERP, then my Lumberry will pop, and I will be fine with that. And things like the mons that could take advantage of this are things like Pikachu, potentially Rotom, like a Choice Scarf Rotom Mow or something with Thunderbolt or Thunder. But I have ways around that. Obviously, Licky the Blob is my next mon. Garchomp's immune to electric type attacks anyway. And then some of my other mons are faster and hit super effective. Speaking of Licky the Blob, we have this Ice Beam Earthquake Wish Protect set. Nearly max def with a little bit of defense investment, max HP, and we got the Oblivious here, so we can't be taunted by things like SERP and maybe Marshadow. I think it maybe gets taunt. But yeah, we can click Ice Beam versus basically things like Dotrio, SERP, and what was it, the Togetic, and then we got Earthquake for things like Mawile and Victini and things like that. Pikachu, I guess, to an extent, if it comes, it definitely could. Anyways, next up we have Sneasel, which is our most likely our lead for the matchup. We have Taunt, Knockoff, Ice Punch, and Pursuit. So what I expect to happen is for him to lead off with Mesprit and to be a Cobra Berry brand, and for me to lead off with Sneasel and to taunt him. With his Cobra Berry, he knows he can take a knockoff, so he's going to stay in, he's going to click rocks. I'm going to taunt him. He's not going to get his rocks up. And then I can either click knockoff or pursuit, depending on what I think is going on. More than likely, click taunt into pursuit, and that way, if he does have Cobra Berry, then like knockoff pursuit basically did the same damage. And if he switches out, then pursuit does a lot, and he most likely isn't Cobra Berry if he's switching out, meaning pursuit will do a whole lot more. Plus, I have the sash, so that I could taunt him and then double knockoff or knockoff into pursuit or something like that. Also have inner focus to where I can't be hit by fake out or anything like that and flinched, so that's really dope. Or like an Iron Head flinch from say Trick Room somehow got up. Mesprit set up the Trick Room, Mega Mawile, Mesprit set up the Trick Room, Sneasel knocks it out, Mega Mawile versus Sneasel, and then the Mawile's at 12% HP out of Ice Shard range. He just brings it in, clicks Iron Head, brings me down to my sash, and no flinch. Impossible to flinch me, and I'll knock him out with the knockoff or the ice, probably the knockoff. And then it's basically just the idea around this thing. Can taunt Vaporeon from setting up wishes. If Victini goes for a V-Create, I can bring this thing in, and especially if I got my sash intact and just click Pursuit, he's either going to switch out, or his weakened defense is going to make it to where Pursuit hurts him anyway, and things like that. And then Victini is actually his only way to. Okay, I played against Tapu Lele in Season 5 of the ITL against the Gypsy King. The Gypsy King, not just Gypsy King. And I had Victini and Oranguru. And the first time, I really thought about bringing Assault Vest Victini. But the thing was that Tapu Lele with a Psyshock in the Psychic Terrain was still basically 2-hit KO anyway after Stealth Rocks. So I really didn't feel like that was viable for me. But it could be for my opponent, because it helps versus Mega Alakazam as well. And I've actually played another finals match against my buddy Neandrew, coach of the Bexlaheth Bisharps. And he ran a very bulky Victini with Rest Hawk. versus my Mega Alakazam once. So that's another likely set. And speaking of Mega Alakazam, my last Pokemon on the team this week is going to be a modest Mega Alakazam with Sub, Calm Mind, Psychic, and Shadow Ball. Not running coverage, once again, not running coverage for Mega Mawile, but I think if it comes in on a Psychic Terrain boosted Psychic, especially if I'm at +1, then I think Shadow Ball will knock out the following turn. We got Sub there so that I can play around with Sucker Punch. Or if I just know that he's going to switch out, sack something off, or if I know, for example, he could go into something like Vaporeon, I could switch in on Vaporeon, trace its Water Absorb, get my health back from my subs, and at the same time have to force the Vaporeon out once again because it can't do damage to me. I can sub up once again, and so on and so forth. Her rinse and repeat throughout the match. But yeah, it's going to be the preps, and we'll go ahead and hop into the battle, and we'll be right back. Alright, so here we are with the replay, and my opponent chooses to bring the Victini, Mesprit, Dugtrio, Mega Mawile, Vaporeon, and the Marshadow. So pretty much everything that we expected. No Togekick, no Rotom Mow or anything like that. No Serp like we expected, but we still got this Crobat for it just in case. Yeah, a little bit unorthodox team for myself, but same thing from my opponent. But definitely threatening on both sides. I feel like a more offensive approach would have been nice in this game. Let's go ahead and hop into the replay though. So, like I mentioned, team preview here. He's brought all 3 of his potential rockers, which was likely, like I mentioned, and 2 of them. Well, I guess not 2, but okay. So Mesprit is threatened by Sneasel and can be taunted. The trio's faster, can't actually be taunted, but it can be threatened by ice type attacks and things like that. And then he's got Mawile, which I don't think he would necessarily lead that, because I could be a lead Crobat, I could be a lead Garchomp, and could just click Earthquake. I could be a banded Garchomp, click Earthquake, knock that motherfucker out. But yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to lead with Sneasel here, and he is going to lead with the Mawile. So already on the back foot from turn 1. I think the I don't want to spoil the outcome, but I think the lead matchup there was insane. So I'm going to sub up in case he had the Sucker Punch. I didn't expect Sucker and Knock, but it was possible. So I want to go ahead and sub up first and then Roost while he does whatever he's got to do. So I'm going to go into Sneasel here as he gets up his rocks. And what I should have done was taunted, because he's going to paralyze me here, and this could come back to hurt me really bad. I could be slower than Victini and Marshadow, or Dugtrio, depending on how fast he was and stuff like that. I could potentially lose my sash without getting a hit off. I could get parried 3 or 4 times this match. All kinds of different things could happen here. So he's going to withdraw here, and I pursuit. But there's the first yellow magic raining on my parade here. So we'll see if it happens again. We're going to taunt him here. We're still faster despite the paralysis, as he goes for the baton pass. And now he hard switches into Mawile, and I get fully paralyzed again. So here I'm going to go into Licky Licky. I didn't want to go into a Crobat on an Iron Head or a knockoff again. So I go into Licky Licky and just sack this thing off. I didn't feel any real merit for it. But that's another thing. Sacking Licky Licky there was a huge mistake, because like I mentioned during my prep, I didn't expect Choice Scarf Marshadow, and that's actually what he is. So now I don't really like Sneasel resist, but is it a switch into Marshadow's Shadow Punch or Shadow Claw or whatever it gets? No, it's not. And if he's Choice Scarf, he outspeeds my entire team at this point, and now Marshadow goes absolutely ham versus me. So what I've got to do is do my very best to eliminate Marshadow as soon as I possibly can. So I'm going to go for the Earthquake here. He switches into the Mesprit. I'm just going to get up my rocks here as he goes for the Psychic. Bounces off. I'm bulky as hell. And now he's going to go for another... oh, no. He goes for Knock this time. And he's going to knock off my Sash here, as I'm going to just continuously pursue him here. I did some calcs here, and by his knockoff damage, we'll basically knock each other out. Here with the knockoffs and the pursuits. And yeah, see, we're both basically gone at this point. And now I feel a little bit better. I don't have to deal with Mesprit, and Garchomp can freely click Earthquake now. So he's guaranteed that he is Choice Scarf the way he's playing it now. So I'm just going to go into Garchomp, click this Earthquake. I know I can take a Shadow Punch. And now he brings it back in. But I know he's going to go for the Ice Punch. So I'm going to stay in this turn because I have my Yachi Berry. And I'm going to get that damage on this Marshadow like I mentioned a few minutes ago. Because it's a huge threat to me. I just want to get damage off on it at this point. He goes for the Ice Punch. I survive. I'm going to click that Earthquake and get some nice damage off versus him. But not quite enough. As you can see, he is out of Rock's range. Unless you're Turbo. Turbo thinks that fighting types take 12.5 from Rocks or whatever. But yeah. Anyways, so he's going to have to switch out his Marshadow here because he can't knock me out with an Ice Punch, and yet he would be knocked out with whatever move I go for. So he's forced to switch out there, and I predicted his Victini and went for the Shadow Ball, but he just goes into the Vaporeon and then knocks me straight out with a clean V-Create. And here, I didn't want to go into Mega Alakazam first because I wouldn't have a way to switch into Marshadow. So what I wanted to actually do is based on how defensive I thought Victini was, I wanted to go into Crobat and just roost off this V-Create damage. But V-Create was incredibly too powerful. And I actually thought for a moment that V-Create's attack was, your Pokemon's attack was dropped after you click V-Create, much like its defense and stuff. But that's not the case, and he's actually going to be able to clean up with Marshadow. See, he comes in on... See, the plan was... I was had that Earthquake roll on the Marshadow gotten him just a little bit lower, and then rough skin damage would have put him in range of Rocks, and he wouldn't have this 4% to work with. And the idea was to bring Crobat in versus Victini, roost up, and then knock it out with an Air Slash after its defenses are dropped so far. And then once, if Vaporeon comes in, I don't necessarily expect it to... I mean, it doesn't really matter what it does, actually, because what I do, if Vaporeon comes in, the first thing I do is try to, make sure that I'm got my health as high as it can possibly be. Then immediately if he brings Vaporeon in, I'm going to switch out to my Mega Alakazam, trace that Water Absorb, and then try to set up a sub. It's going to be Vaporeon and Mega Mawile versus Crobat and Mega Alakazam. That's what I was seeing in my head, and just wasn't able to get enough damage off on the Marshadow, and the Victini was a whole lot bulkier than anticipated. But yeah, we're gonna lose here, 3-0 to our buddy, very confident player and stuff like that. So not a big deal. Likely meet him again in playoffs as long as we both continue to play at the highest level that we can play at. We'll certainly meet in the playoffs once again, and then hopefully maybe get a rematch in the finals or something. You never know. But yeah, that's gonna be it. Let me know what you thought about the prep on both sides of the field. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.